Alrighty, guys, we are live. Welcome to my first ever live stream on this channel. If you are watching this, you are an OG. This is an historic moment. I hope we look back on this years from now and say this is where it all began. But we'll get to that 10 years from now. What we're here to talk about at this moment is England versus Ireland, the Six Nations fixture, live from Aviva Stadium. It was full time just a few minutes ago. Kind of digesting the game, reflecting on it. Ireland did get the win, 27 points to 22, as you can see here on my trusty little whiteboard. Actually, a scoreline that somewhat flatters England. Oh, we don't want that. There we go. We're going to have a few technical glitches here, possibly, but bear with me, guys. So it's a scoreline that somewhat flattered England because they had two late scores. Really, Ireland ran away with this game in the final quarter. Too much muscle, too much discipline. It didn't look that way at the start of the game. So what I'm going to do in this live stream is kind of give you my top line thoughts and then break down the key moments in the game. If you guys want to chime in, ask a question, I'll get to those as well. But look, coming into this game, there were three main narratives. For me, one of them was, how the hell are England going to start winning again? All right. You remember that Autumn International Series last year was a horror show. They went down to the All Blacks. They went down to the Springboks. They went down to Australia, which was probably the most galling result. What was Steve Borthwick going to do to change things up? Well, we saw one change in the starting team. You had the Curry brothers, the twins, Tom, Ben. They were going to be playing at 6 and 7 with Earl at 8. So going for a more mobile, loose forward mix. Would this bear some fruit for England? Would they be more impactful at the breakdown by having that speed on the ground? We were going to find out today. For me, the second big question was, since England faded so much in those games at the end of the year, where the All Blacks ran them down and where, God forbid, the Wallabies ran them down at the end, could they get some impact off the bench? Well, now you have a guy like Chandler Cunningham South. He's not starting. He's coming off the bench. So is he going to provide an injection of power? Well, he provided an injection of sorts. We'll get to that later on. He did make an impact, maybe not the kind that England was looking for. And then, look, the third narrative going into this game is, who is the best pivot for Ireland? Now, I've seen a little bit of controversy among Irish fans. Are you in the Crowley camp? Are you in the Prendergast camp? For me, this is a great headache to have. Every top-tier team needs 2 or 3 first 5/8s that they can go to because injuries happen. Fluctuations in form happen. You look at New Zealand, Damien McKenzie, Beauden Barrett, Richie Mo'unga's coming back. You look at the Springboks, they've got an embarrassment of riches, right? You've got Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu. You've got Hendrickse, you got Marnie Labok. I mean, you're spoiled for choice, and that's not even mentioning the incumbent that you all know about who kicked those important goals in the Rugby World Cup finals, memorably. So a nice little battle for number 10 for the Irish. Prendergast started today. Crowley was on the bench. We did get to see them both play. I'm going to give you my thoughts on who probably shone a little bit more out of the two. And as I mentioned, we're going to take a look at some of these stats here. But let's go back to the beginning of the game. 2 minutes in, England really showed their hand. All right, and that is that they were going to weaponize their kicking game. So you had Marcus Smith taking the ball in the pocket, immediately doing an angled grubber. Not long after that, the second possession, he puts a bomb up. So why is England doing this? Well, they are trying to put the Irish in two minds so that when they finally choose to run or pass, they're going to catch Ireland by surprise. And that's basically what happened here, because the third time that the ball went out to Marcus Smith, he absolutely cut the line open. So you started thinking, okay, this could be a little bit ominous here. If England can be really smart with their tactical kicking game, there is going to be that opportunity to break the line. You got Slade in midfield. You got good outside backs. And of course, you have Marcus Smith, who is a very dynamic number 10. Now, in the fourth minute, there were some ominous signs for Ireland when Mac Hansen limped off. I would have thought for the life of me he wasn't coming back. I mean, he was staggering off the field. He looked very gingerly, didn't really want to put weight on his legs. So you kind of thought, well, geez, that's the end of his night. He's an important player for them. And you had a shuffle in the back line. You actually had Ringrose moving out to the wing. But we'll get back to this in a second. We'll loop back because it wasn't quite what it looked like there. Now, in the 6th minute, Prendergast started showing man, he's got some hops. He was starting to break the line. Now, the line breaks were pretty even in this game. I mean, if you take a look here, we got 10 for Ireland, we got 9 for the Red Rose. So they pretty much split that. But Prendergast definitely was responsible for a couple of those. He has a lot of mobility. He has beautiful balance as a runner. That may be one reason that some people prefer him at 10. Not that Crowley is a slouch in terms of his running game, but you could sort of see why his selection was justified there. However, it was the English that actually scored first. I'm just checking my notes here. It was the 8th minute. Caden Murley scored a try. And again, it was off that weaponized kicking game. It was a grubber from Slade. You sort of had Ireland thinking that we were just going to be running the ball. I say we, I'm a Kiwi. England was going to be running the ball. They're not my team. I respect England, but they're not my team. And so what happened there was you actually had a bit of space in midfield because Ireland was really D'ing up, trying to shut down the run. But Slade got off a beautiful ball. Hey, man, we got crazy NZ here. I'm guessing you're a fellow Kiwi too. Wow, close game. Yeah, bro, it was a close game. I mean, closer than a lot of people expected. I think that people thought Ireland might just run away with this one. But I would just encourage you to think back to last year, guys. I know Ireland won the Six Nations, but do you remember that England beat them at home? It was a last-second drop goal, but nevertheless, they got the job done at Twickenham. So, look, England very capable of getting a win over Ireland. And look, the theme of this game was that Ireland grew into it, and England actually had the better of it for the first 20 minutes. Looking at my notes here. In the 15th minute, I wrote down that the English D line speed was ferocious, and it was. They were really coming at the Irish with incredible intensity. But the question was, could they stay disciplined? We know England has good rush D. Can they maintain their discipline? For me, that was going to be probably the most critical factor in the game. But look, Ireland had multiple advantages, and then it was actually number 2, Ronan Gallagher, after just battering away at the English try line. He did get over the line, but it was actually disallowed. So England maintained their lead there. And then in the 16th minute, Mac Hansen came back on, which was a little bit shocking. You know, you thought he had a really bad injury, but he came back on the field. So Ireland kind of had their preferred backline in there. Now, in the 23rd minute, Tyg Byrne got a turnover after an English up and under, which was brilliantly reclaimed. But that gave Ireland some field position. And actually, I want to kind of take a look here at the territory. Yeah, I mean, here's the deal, right? I mean, fairly close, but Ireland, they did shade the territory, and that was probably pretty telling in the end. You just felt they were down the right end of the field. They were in the kill zone more often. I think that was critical. You know, they just had more opportunities to strike than England did, because England looked pretty good on attack for much of the game, but you know, it comes down to how many opportunities do you get. And look, almost 60% of the territory, you know, that's more than enough for a team like Ireland to pull off the win. And here, what was happening was they were putting so much pressure on England that the English defense was drawn offside time and time again. The refs started warning them. Itoje had to warn his troops. Look, I love Maro Itoje. He definitely was offside a few times. He can be a little bit of a penalty machine. Now, a lot of people think he's going to be the captain of the Lions, and I can see that. He's a hell of a player. The only question mark with him might be the discipline. So look, we're at the 25th minute. Ireland is hammering on the line, but it's not the clinical Ireland that we're used to. We're seeing little mistakes creeping into their game. And it looked like they were going to score a try, but they had an accidental or intentional, depending how cynical you thought it was, obstruction. Okay, so essentially, you sort of had Ireland ramping up, moving through the gears, but then shooting themselves in the foot with a bit of an unforced error. I would say some of them were forced errors, I like to call them, which was that, you know, the line speed from England was just causing them to make uncharacteristic mistakes. So you got to give credit to the English D here. They really came hard all day, and they made the Irish look un-Irish at times. Now, in the 28th minute, you had Tom Curry, I should say, justifying his selection. You know, you basically had 3 open sides out there, right, for England. 6 and 7 were the twins, the Curry boys. You had Earl at 8, who, you know, basically plays like an open side flanker. But you had a nice little turnover there that was pretty crucial just to stem the tide. So you start thinking, okay, there could be some fruit in this approach for England of having such a mobile, if undersized, loose forward trio. And you had this familiar theme of England's D scrambling, shutting down the Irish defence. Ireland was lacking their usual accuracy right up until the 32nd minute, just not able to puncture that English D. But then finally, right leading into the break, 34th minute, James Lowe broke the line. And he looked untroubled by his calf, by the way, because he only came back to provincial action last week. I believe he was in the URC, but he'd been out for a month. He's had a troublesome calf injury. Well, that didn't look like a problem. Now, listen, he's not a winger who has the greatest top end speed in the world, but he is strong. He is direct. He has a hell of a fend. He has a hell of a step. For me, he was the man of the match today. And in this instance, in the 39th minute, he was able to the 34th minute, he was able to break the line and feed Jamison Gibson Park. So Ireland got on the board there. And, you started seeing signs that if Ireland keep going coast to coast, they're going to stretch that English defense. And, they might get some fruit out of that. So we went into the break. It was 5-10 at halftime. Okay. So England was leading the game. Even then, I just had a feeling that Ireland might be finishing over the top of them. And so, you get to the 47th minute, England turned the ball over as Ireland was just slamming on their line. And that was a bit of a familiar theme. In fact, let's take a look at another stat here on the old trusty whiteboard. Turnovers. Okay. Not surprised to see that, actually. Ireland 5, England 1 8. So England did shade the battle of the breakdown to a certain extent. They got more turnovers. That was probably where having those three very mobile, open side flanker type players at 6, 7, and 8 for England did pay some dividends. They were very competitive at the breakdown. And, I'm not sure that they were missing power. You still have Ben Earl, who has such a great running power game. He's kind of the English Artie Sarvea, in my opinion, which is, high praise from a New Zealander. So I actually liked the look of the English loosies. And that's one statistic that the English can certainly cling to as a little bit of a ray of sunshine in this loss for them. But look, we get to the 51st minute here, and Prendergast set up Bundy Archie out wide. Too much muscle. Speaking of muscle and power, Bundy Archie just powered over. And the Irish were starting to look like the Irish again. The passes were starting to stick. It was just all flowing a little bit better for them after looking a little bit stop-start, a little bit rusty in the first half. Hello from Ireland. Hey, brother, how you doing there? How you doing, lads? I'm having a great day, man. I'm here in Portland, Oregon in my man cave. I'm live streaming on YouTube with you beautiful people. The Royal Rumble is today. I don't know if anyone's a WWE fan. I'm a WWE super fan. I can't wait for the Royal Rumble. So, man, I'm having a great Saturday. Thank you for asking. I'm sure you're having a great day with your boys winning. Now, who do you have next week? I think you've got, I want to say that you might have, is it France next week or is that England that has France next week? I'll tell you what, France looks scary, dude. Now, I know Wales didn't win a game last year, but if you guys saw what France did to Wales yesterday, I want to say the score was like 43-0. The 43 is impressive. To me, the 0 is more impressive. I mean, when you can just blank a team, I believe that Wales haven't been blanked in decades in the Six Nations. So, look, say what you will about Wales. They're at a low ebb. I don't want to kick them when they're down. But, man, when you hold a Six Nations team to 0, that's pretty impressive. So, for me, the French are a different team with Dupont back in the saddle. Can't wait to see France versus Ireland. Can't wait to see France versus England, too. That one's always unpredictable. England's a bit of a bogey team for the French. All right, guys. We're on the Irish theme here. In the 58th minute, Jack Crowley came on. I'm wondering if this Irishman wants to tell me if he's a Crowley guy or a Prendergast guy. Because, opinions pretty sharply divided. For my money, Crowley looked good when he came on. Perhaps had the pack going forward a bit more, so he would have looked better. I think Prendergast was dealing with some fairly sloppy service in the first half, particularly in the first quarter. So maybe we'll call it a draw, a split decision between those two 5/8s. But the other fella that came on from the bench, he wasn't wearing a green shirt, he was wearing a white shirt, and that was Chandler Cunningham South. So I mentioned, I've been harping on about it, this rejigged loose forward trio for England. I'm harping on about it because I think it's very significant. And not just for what you get from the starters, but what it allows you to do off the bench. Chandler Cunningham South coming on, could he just create havoc towards the end of the game. Well, he did create havoc, almost like irreparable damage havoc for his own side, because he was this close to getting a yellow card. He took out an Irish player in the air, and it was a crucial penalty that went against England. I mean, you didn't need that. They really needed a score here. And just a little bit of ill discipline there, a bit of a brain explosion from the big man who, I rate so highly as a player. But maybe the top 2 inches weren't working at full capacity there. He almost got his timing right. But look, these days, when you take a man out in the air, you guys know what the international rules are like nowadays. I mean, you can be flirting with a red card, forget yellow. It's like any contact above the collarbone, that can be a red card if it's head on head. And anytime you take someone out in the air, you're playing with fire. So that was almost costly for England, but they did dodge the bullet. It was just a penalty. They didn't get a yellow card there. Then in the 63rd minute, James Lowe breaks again. Tadhg Burns scores. So now you had Ireland going out 20 points to 10. You start thinking this is getting to be a bit of a hole for England. How are they going to dig themselves out of it? Now, I mentioned their kicking game, which was good at times, but you're not going to kick your way to 10 points. You're going to have to score some tries. And actually, it was the Irish next who sort of tried their luck with the kick. You had a beautiful grubber in the 68th minute. And what the Irish did was they pinned England down in their 22. And then Murley, who scored that great try earlier for England, he got trapped behind his own try line. He just needed to just dump the ball down. Just slam it down on the grass, 22 dropout or a scrum, whatever the ref's call was going to be, if he could get it over the line or not. It was a close call, but what he didn't need to do was stand upright. James Lowe snagged him in a tackle. Then he was forced into touch. So now you had Ireland once again hot on attack in the kill zone, in the red zone. And they weren't able to get a try there, but they were getting pretty good results from kicking down, pinning the English boys in their 22. They started targeting with Marcus Smith, who dropped back to fullback. Some people feel was a little fragile under the high ball. Thought he did an okay job today, but they were definitely targeting him with the bombs there. And then, look, the 71st minute, James Lowe again broke after a midfield bust, put away Dan Sheehan, who scored with beautiful support play. So now it was 27-10 with the conversion and game over. I mean, at that point, it's game over. The only kind of interesting remaining factor in this was, could England score a penalty, score, a couple penalties? Could they get some tries quickly? Could they just get that, the scoreboard ticking up, get within range of a bonus point? Well, they actually scored 2 tries late. You had Tom Curry, who scored when he caught Ireland napping there, and they had a great cutaway shot to his family up in the crowd celebrating. That was definitely a feel-good moment. They'd come to see the 2 brothers playing. So Curry nabbed a good quick try there, and then England kind of smelled blood. They kept attacking. In the 81st minute, Tommy Freeman scored a try. So they actually secured a losing bonus point. They were able to rack up enough points, and good on them. They weren't trying to play for penalties or anything. They didn't have time for that. Honestly, they needed to score tries. So look, ultimately, if you come into this live stream and you miss the game and you see 27-22, you probably think, not bad. Not bad. England played pretty well. Well, they did in the first quarter, and they did in the last 10 minutes. But really, in the second half, the Irish gained ascendancy. And to my mind, it never really looked in doubt in the second half. So look, I think Ireland will keep probably playing Prendergast. It's not like he had a shocker. It wasn't a totally dominant display. He got some pretty rough service in the first half. But if that pack is going forward more, I think he's a hell of a good player. He's a hell of a balanced runner. He's got a good kick pass option. It's just a case of, will Crowley force his way back in with a blinder at some point? So look, we're only in the first round. I know we're talking about an Irish three-peat already. My thoughts are, man, let's get through France first before we start thinking about an Irish three-peat with the Six Nations title. I actually am going to say it here, guys. I think that France is probably the team to beat. Well, this is great. We got some more people coming in here. We got 18 watching now. This is my first live stream, so I thought maybe it'd be just performing to myself. So I'm very happy to see you guys here. Drop a like if you will. It's going to help people discover it in the YouTube algorithm. But send me any thoughts here, guys. Let me know if you think that the French are the team to beat in the competition. That's just the way I'm leaning. I just feel like they're a different team with Dupont back. Last year, they were good enough to get the silver medal, and that was really playing below par at times. Don't forget, they drew with Italy last year. Like, they had a couple of very scrappy games. But man, it's just like a Rolls Royce when you have Dupont pulling the strings. And I just think the Lucies are probably the best in the competition for the French. So yeah, the English might be lambs to the slaughter to a certain extent when it comes to that French game. I just wonder what they're going to do with the loose forward trio. And I'm very curious, if people end up leaving comments, how they felt about the English loose forwards. Certainly there was more mobility around the pitch. It was a fast back three. And as we talked about earlier when we went over the statistics, all right, they shaded Ireland in the turnovers. They had 8-5. That is a direct result of picking mobility, choosing players that can get over the ball, get from ruck to ruck really quickly. But are they going to be running into a buzzsaw against the size of the French Lucies? Because the French Lucies have the pace, but they also have the size and the muscle. So I actually think you might see a Chandler Cunningham South coming back into the starting lineup for England when they take on France. But look, what else can the English do? I mean, they're just on this kind of losing streak. The question is it an illusion that they're this close? Are they really quite far off the pace? Because I know they've dropped so many games by a very slim margin. But when that happens over and over again, you start to think, is there something psychologically wrong? They're sticking with Borthwick, all right? They're sticking with their coach. Seemingly, they're sticking with Marcus Smith. They think he's got the best upside as an attacking 10. They reject the Lucies. Guys, what else do they do? I want to hear from some Englishmen and women in the comments. What is it that England needs to do to turn the corner? And look, I'm a big fan of the English. Guys, I'm a Kiwi, and I predicted them to beat the All Blacks at Twickenham last year. And by the way, never been more happy to be wrong. But I don't feel there's too much egg on my face. They would have beaten the All Blacks, but for a kick bouncing off the upright. Okay, so England on their day are right up there, top 4 in the world, but they just can't put it together consistently. I don't know what it's going to take. I'm looking forward to hearing in the comments what you guys think. And then the other question for me, is this Ireland team in decline? What do you think? We're in that post-Sexton era. We're well into that era. Peter O'Mahony is in the rearview mirror at this point. Are they going to get back to the heights that they hit in the last 4 to 6 years? Where are they in the pecking order? The All Blacks did beat them at home last year. Caught them cold, caught them a little bit rusty. But nevertheless, you sort of started wondering, is this a little bit of a tide turning in the global rugby pecking order? The Irish did go on to win all their games. They put away Australia. They put away Fiji. They put away Argentina. But it never quite looked vintage. It still looked like they weren't as cohesive as I've seen them in the past. The Irish are bloody terrifying. I mean, I say this with the greatest respect. As a New Zealander, it's been scary playing Ireland for like a decade now. I'm not quite seeing that cohesiveness at the moment. I'm seeing unforced errors. I'm seeing just a lack of slickness and finishing. And actually, with the number of line breaks they had, 10 line breaks, you felt they probably could have finished a couple more opportunities. The men in green could have, but just didn't quite do it today. So I'm looking for better finishing from them. They're certainly creating opportunities. They're certainly good at playing territory. They've got a great kicking game, got a hell of a good forward pack. But if they're not a bit more clinical with their finishing, I'm just telling you guys right now, they're not winning the Six Nations this year. It's going to be Dupont lifting that title. All right, guys. Well, this has been a really fun first experience. I hear my girlfriend going out to get me coffee now as a reward. She's very supportive of this live stream. I got to get myself ready for some real sport, the Royal Rumble. I'm picking CM Punk to win, and I'm picking Bianca Belair to win the Women's Royal Rumble. If there are any WWE fans, leave a comment below. That would really make my day. And guys, please drop a like on the way out if you've enjoyed this. Help me reach more people. And I just want to say before I go, the reason I wanted to switch to doing lives is because I love talking to you guys. I love talking to rugby. I live in America. I'm not in New Zealand anymore, where I was born and grew up. I'm not in a rugby world. You guys are my rugby community. So I want to lean as much into the community as the content this year. And this is my way of doing it. This is the first start, so I've really enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for being here. Really appreciate you joining me for my inaugural live stream. I'm going to put a poll up during the week, and you can tell me which Six Nations game you want me to cover with live streaming next week. So guys, I'll catch you then. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Congrats to Ireland. Commiserations to England. And enjoy the Royal Rumble if you're so inclined. All right, guys, I'll catch you later. Take it easy. Bye for now.